Welcome to Aesthetically Speaking with Felicia Lisa Middleton.
Hello and welcome back to Aesthetically Speaking, where we are building conversations about Philadelphia's locations. This season, season 2 of Aesthetically Speaking, we are talking food locations and everything about planning and building your food facility. Today we have Ernest Scot Fields of CEO Capital Funding. Hi Scott, how are you today?
How are you?
Good, good. Scott is someone that I always talk with about helping clients finance their projects. And financing your restaurant project is very important. And Scott, tell us a little bit about why focusing on finance might be one of the most important things with planning a restaurant, especially a restaurant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, without the actual money, it's not like you can actually do anything.
Very true. Well, although you and I both know that people do that. They try to plan a restaurant without having the money.
Right, right. I mean, if you miss out on they put a lot of money actually maybe just in infrastructure, then they don't actually put enough actual money actually into, the products and
Very good.
the human resources, the soft costs that go along actually with it. If they do all of that, basically, then a lot of times they're actually missing out on the marketing, and then basically they just think, hey, I just opened my doors, everybody's supposed to come here. But, they keep forgetting that basically that everybody else out here doesn't, they're not telepathic. They don't know you open.
Exactly.
So,
and they need to know where you are,
right.
and why you're there, and what's unique about what you have. Right?
Exactly.
Now, you just named a couple things that I'm glad you named them. Soft costs. And what was the other one you named? These are things that would go into a client's budget, right? These different topics you just named.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're looking to actually open up a restaurant, there's things that every restaurant owner really needs to actually understand, and there with a restaurant, the cost is everything, how much am I actually going to turn around that's going to go on my plate? How many seats am I going to actually have basically in this actual restaurant? How much can I get per seat that's actually in this place, basically per hour, per day, per week, per month? All that actually really boils down to, what your profitability is actually going to be.
Exactly. That determines your what you're going to make for yourself and for your employees, too.
Yeah, exactly. So, you have a lot of restaurants, they just open up basically and they're like, hey, look, our food is good. Doesn't mean really crap, basically. It means basically, hey, look, you got 20 seats actually in here, basically. What's your turnover, basically, per hour, per day, basically, that you're going to end up actually getting? Could you turn around and get 6 more seats actually in here, basically? How much more is that per year in gross revenue?
And then see what you just said, something important. One of the things that I always deal with is there are definitely limitations to how many seats can be in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So when you're planning your budget for a restaurant and you realize I can only fit so many people in here, what is a good way for a person to determine how much that's going to yield? Maybe that's not a good idea for you to use that building because you need to yield a certain amount of money. All of this, I would think, needs to go into planning before you even find your place, or when you're looking for different places, and when you're putting your budget together.
Yeah. I mean, it also boils down to how much is actually going to go on that actual plate. Also, don't turn around and give me a Thanksgiving meal. It's kind of hard. Basically, I'm not going to order anything else. Basically, I'm not going to order any desserts. I'm probably not going to order any more drinks or anything of that nature because I'm already stuffed and everything of that nature. So. So that really boils down to, and the more you put on a plate with the least amount of seats that you actually have here, the less money you're going to actually, end up actually making, regardless of how good the food actually is.
That's true.
I'm not saying just turn around and throw 3 beans on a plate, but there's some things.
Well, there are some restaurants that do that. Those really fancy restaurants, you get a little tiny serving on a plate.
Right. So there's some things that folks really need to actually understand. And again, with the restaurant, it is all about your portions, your budget, your percentages. It's all actually about that.
Now, with financing, with capital financing, you help provide funding for someone that may or may not be interested in going into different types of businesses, investments, and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how that would be helpful for someone in the restaurant industry.
So what we actually are is we're business lending. Um, what we do is we provide business funding in almost every facet you can think of.
Okay.
So when it comes to someone who actually has a restaurant, um, one of the main things that we really look at, we really want to actually look at somebody who already is established.
Okay.
You know, um, and is doing some revenue. You know, now when I say revenue, that doesn't mean that it has to be profitable. Okay, but they need to be doing something, and for us to turn around and say that we're going to actually give you some actual money. Um,
And that's a good point. Are you thinking like through a food truck or?
yeah, I mean, so if you're a food truck and through that business entity, everything is still going through that business entity, then fine. We don't care if it's a food truck, pop up stand, or whatever the case may be. Now you're finally moving into an actual restaurant.
Okay.
That is perfect actually for us basically because we could still see some actual trackage. And so somebody who might be making, who might be bringing in say $150,000, $200,000 a year that's not a lot of money.
It's not at all.
Not a lot of money.
Not at all
for
a restaurant.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. Because you have rent, you have what you were saying about soft costs.
Yeah.
You have inventory. You have maintenance. That's
Right.
one of the things that I notice a lot of people don't consider is maintenance.
Exactly.
Maintenance is huge.
Yeah. So one of the things that we have to look at basically is when we turn around and we work with a restaurant. We'll go off your gross revenue.
Okay.
We don't care about any of all the other stuff basically because we understand that that's going to probably change once you get new money.
Okay.
So we're going to basically say, hey, fine, we're going to give you this actual money so you can actually get whatever you need to get done. A lot of times folks will go into the actual new restaurant. They just need that actual capital basically to secure their new spot. Once they secure their new spot or they need to get new equipment that's actually in there, we'll help them actually with that. Those are the type of things that we tend to actually do.
Okay. Do you find sometimes that people have a number in their mind that might not match what you've seen? Let's just give an average restaurant in Philadelphia, maybe a storefront.
Yeah.
What do you see when it comes to the numbers that some of your clients that come to you might have versus reality?
Everybody tries to make their numbers look better.
Okay.
Which is why basically that we just say, look, just give us your actual tax returns and bank statements. I don't want to see your actual. I don't want to see anything else that you actually just made actually up. Because again, it's a lot of it is actually going to be fluff.
Mm-hmm.
And two things that we see, they'll do that and then they'll ask for not enough money.
I see that a lot. I don't see your side of it, but I see clients that didn't get a lot of money. They didn't get enough money for the project itself.
Right. So a lot of them will turn around and be like, oh, I just got $15,000, $20,000 basically. But I'm like, wait a minute, but you need a kitchen that's actually $80,000. And
I've seen them higher than that.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen $98,000 kitchens. I've seen them even higher than that.
Yeah.
Because kitchen equipment is very expensive.
It's expensive. I mean, a hood alone should
like 20 grand.
Yeah. So, so I see it basically, and we're like, look, so when they come to us and they actually are trying to give us their performas and everything like that, basically, and everything is kind of, inflated, so to speak, and then they ask for the small amount of money. That just basically just tells us basically that okay, this is just going to be a waste of time.
Red flag.
Read that basically. So that's what we'll turn around and say. You know what? Give us your last 12 months bank statement so we can actually see what your gross revenue.
That makes sense.
Because we're going to actually go through that and we're going to actually see what was your gross revenue? What was basically being transferred into that account? From your personal.
Okay.
You know?
So you're looking at the bank statements for what they were bringing in for whatever income they had for their talent as a cook,
Yeah.
plus whatever their personal income is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. A lot of times you'll have a lot of businesses that'll um, they'll self-finance their business. So hey, they're showing $50,000 a month of deposits basically, but 10,000 of that's coming from their own personal account.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to back that out.
So that
That's not
doesn't count
revenue.
toward. Okay.
That's not revenue. You didn't generate that basically from the sale of food.
You loaned yourself the money.
You loaned yourself, right? Basically, so so we're going to back that actually out, and so you got folks who actually will turn around and put that money actually from a 401k or whatever case may be. Mom, dad, whatever.
But I mean, now that you don't frown on that. It's just something don't show you when you're looking to get some financing for your
No, we don't
restaurant.
frown on it basically, but we're not going to use it.
Okay, not going to use it to consider how much they're going to get.
Right. So basically, if that's the case, if that 10,000 is coming into it, we're going to deduct that. We're going to say, fine, you make $40,000 a month.
Okay.
In gross revenue. That's how, and then we're going to base our numbers based off of that.
Now, here's something that I've noticed. Do you look at, I deal with a lot of renters. Mm-hmm. So do you look at not only the building itself, because we were talking about evaluating property. We had that conversation. Do you look at not only the value of the property, but do you research the landlord as well?
Not so much. We won't really look at the landlord.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to ask for reference.
Okay.
If they're not paying excuse me, if they're not paying the landlord, that's an issue.
But I mean, the landlord, one of the things I've seen is some issues, I'll just put it that way, just with property owners that they're renting, and there's some issues that are with the property and with.
Yeah, we're not going to actually kind of get into that unless we are looking to finance the building.
Oh, okay. So you're financing. If I'm a renter and I want to open up a restaurant, and a lot of people open up restaurants renting, your financing is for the business entity itself and not necessarily the building. The capital part is.
We can do both.
Okay.
Yeah,
but for the building, it would go to the landlord, not necessarily to the renter.
No, it would go to the business owner. So a lot of times you'll have business owners basically like, hey, look, I'm renting this space basically, but I have an option to buy the whole building.
Okay.
And things like that basically. And they'll do that, which is, so in that case, basically, we're going to look at the building. We're going to look at, okay, what issues that the actual building might actually have.
Yeah, because I mean, and there's a lot of, especially with older buildings in a city like Philadelphia, you never know what you might get into when you go to rent a building. It might be a great location for a restaurant, but then there's a lot of issues with the building itself.
Right.
And then and one of the things I always see on the construction side of it is I have someone that might get a building and they have a budget set up for what they want to do for their restaurant, but the building has so many issues that the money is going to have to go to fixing the building before you can actually.
Yeah. So if we're looking to do the building, and we're also financing the renovations for that building, we're controlling that actual money.
Okay.
At that particular point, that business owner or now property owner, they can dictate who they want to use for their renovations. So if they tell us, hey, look, there's going to be $200,000 of renovations into this actual building, then that's great. But we're going to hold that $200,000. We're going to give it to them basically in draws. And they need to show us proof that they did this work. Because our draws are going to be based on, reimbursables. Mm-hmm. So you can't go on a cheap and get Cousin Pookie to fix your building, and then you're saying you need $200,000, but really you're spending $50,000. Exactly. Now, if you do come in under budget, it needs to be justifiable and it needs to be trackable.
Okay.
And that's one thing. So if you basically say, hey, look, we put $50,000 worth of work actually in this, but we got the materials for 1/3 of the price. Fine, that's different. That's understandable. We understand that some people are able to go to surplus places and everything like that.
Yeah, a lot of people can find discounted building materials.
Yeah, and depending on where they actually are, there's actual programs. We're not just in Philadelphia basically, but we do all over the country. So there's places basically, rehab, reuse. They'll do stuff basically, get some actual discounts and things of that nature. That's understandable. That's fine. And we're basically like, okay, fine. So basically, we're still going to reimburse you just for what you paid for.
Okay.
And everything of that nature. That last draw that you actually put in, that's going to be their extra money at that particular point. We're going to give that back to them.
Okay.
We're not holding on to it basically. If say, hey, look, you say you put $200,000, you only come up to $175. It's not like we're going to keep $25,000 basically of your money. No, we're going to give it back to you.
But because eventually they're going to need that 25 anyway. I mean,
Right.
there's always, one of the things I notice is there's always expenses. I rarely hear a restaurant client saying, I have extra money left over that I never thought I would spend. Most of the time it's, I need to cut back. I can't put this in because I didn't get as much money as I thought I was going to get.
Right.
That's the one thing I've always noticed with restaurants is that they're not necessarily looking at the funding at the same rate that they're looking at what the actual project is.
Right.
Now when it comes to financing a restaurant, I'm calling it financing your tasty space. The first thing is the budget. We know that. You're in finance, you know that.
Yeah.
And I love the way you mentioned soft costs. I'm going to go back to that again because I notice a lot of times budgets don't include my costs and some of the incidentals with my costs. So we were talking about this recently about how people just leave out the cost of, I call it administrative costs.
Yeah,
Those are so important.
They don't take into account basically their contractors. They don't take into account basically, like you just said, extra drawings.
Engineering.
Engineering. They don't take into account basically a lot of the things that you really wouldn't even actually think of. How much is the energy? How much is the electricity bill actually going to be? For you to actually run. How much is the gas bill actually going to be? This is a restaurant, so you're utilizing these actual services. What's the water actually going to be? It's going to be totally different than what you actually had basically when you actually had your house.
And when I first met Scott, he was selling energy. So that's one of the things you remember is that he was selling it to businesses, right? Yeah. Making sure businesses discounted their energy. So, that's a good thing. As a way to wrap this all up, I'm glad you brought up that point because that's another point. And there's so many variables to a restaurant and all these different things. A person should just brainstorm and put down in their budget. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
Because you have to start off with a budget, but you have to brainstorm for so many unmentionables before you can even think about what your financing might be, before you can even approach somebody like you to say, I need this amount of money. You need to know. A lot of times I think what people do is they say, oh, it's going to cost $25,000 for me to open up this restaurant. I need to borrow $25,000, not even looking into what the costs are. Yeah. And they have to research. That's one of the most important things about financing your tasty space. Yeah. Financing your tasty space. You have to find everything you can think of and everything you need to cover. If you can't do it, then you might have to go back to the drawing board, wait a little bit longer. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, folks don't take into account. Folks don't take into account basically, even something simple as, their POS system.
Yes, yes.
There's a cost associated with almost everything that you actually
everything
do,
you're going to need. You're
and
absolutely
they
right.
don't realize all that basically. So those are the type of things basically that we actually miss out on.
Well, I'm glad you came. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for, I've been working with you on different things for, almost 10 years, I guess, right? So thank you for being a part of our show. I really appreciate it. And people like Scott and CEO Capital Funding is an essential part of planning your restaurant and building facility. So thank you again, Scott, for coming out. And looking forward to doing some more stuff with you in the future.
Sure thing.